Hey, this is voice actor Cassandra Lee Morris. Welcome to Now You See Me. I've voiced hundreds of characters for anime, video games, and animation, and I realized people know a lot about the characters I play, but very little about the real me. So, I started this podcast to pull back the curtain on my life, share more about myself, and what I've gone through. Along the way, I'll be interviewing guests, some well-known and others behind the scenes, to dig into their lives and find out what they've overcome to achieve their artistic goals. I hope this podcast will enlighten and inspire you to live your best creative life. Together, we'll all learn that there's more to someone than the stories they tell. Hey everyone, welcome back to Now You See Me podcast with me, Cassandra Lee Morris. Today I have a really special guest that I'm so excited about. I have voice actor Kellen Goff.
Hi, I'm Kellen.
I also happen to think is one of the sweetest people in voiceover.
And you want me to cry right at the top, huh?
Sure.
Is that what you...
This is a safe space.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kellen is known for Five Nights at Freddy's, My Hero Academia, League of Legends, Attack on Titan, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Hunter x Hunter, and like hundreds more. You're a prolific voice actor and you're only 27, which blows my mind because when I first met you, I thought you were older. Like you just have this like nice old soul, like.
And I didn't even have the beard yet.
Yeah, you didn't. Yeah. I think
new.
We first hung out, I think, at Anime Pasadena.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Either that or like something across the country. It was a convention.
Oh,
it definitely was.
Maybe it was Kineticon.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Was that the one where you were where you had brought your guy and he Steve, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Steve. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
And he found a guitar while you were doing. Does he still have it?
Oh yeah, he does. My husband's a musician, and we were traveling, and sometimes like you can find good deals on Facebook Marketplace outside of LA. So he had found a guitar in Connecticut that he picked up, and he was super excited about that. That's so funny you remember that.
Love the street smart. I remember the smallest things that I just found it really interesting, and I found it really cool that he found one. My dad's also jazz guitarist, so
oh no way,
that's what we ended up connecting on, the mutual love for it.
Oh
yeah,
that's awesome. I didn't even know that.
Yeah
Cool.
That's how we started.
Cool. So it's been a while since I have seen you, and like most people because of COVID,
right?
But real quick, how has the last 2 years been for you? What's life like?
Well, other than the obvious,
that we all experience collective trauma.
yeah. I'm still sort of coming out of the cocoon of that.
Yeah.
But for the work, it actually went pretty well. I sort of saw the clouds looming in, and I was like, oh, I gotta get a booth. So
smart.
So a bunch of us at the same time ordered Studio Bricks booths, the ones that come together like Legos, and getting that right when the pandemic started ended up being godsend for most studios, because they were like, well, we can't bring them in, so what are we going to do? And it ended up being a commodity a little bit. Did you have one at the start?
At the start, I did not. I was literally in my walk-in closet.
Did it sound okay?
It sounded okay. I was lucky I had a really good microphone and a good preamp, and also my husband knows what he's doing, so I call him my in-house engineer. He hates that. But if it wasn't for him, I would not have been able to set up like a studio like I did.
Steve,
so.
You got that on
Shout
you
out
got that
Steve.
On camera.
Yes.
She's indebted. But yeah, no, during all of that, we were right in the middle JoJo Part 5, recording that, and it showed on one of the episodes.
We won't tell anyone.
Poor Ray Chase didn't have his stuff together quite yet, so you can but it had to get on Toonami, so we did what we could. I think we ended up re-recording it, but on the first pass, you could hear like the echo of the room and everything.
Oh, no.
The poor guy. But we all caught up pretty quick with that,
Cool.
and I ended up booking more stuff from Texas from home because they used at the time they used the pandemic as sort of an excuse to, like, since everybody was recording from home, might as well record from everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Get a bunch of talent they hadn't used before.
That's awesome.
So-
And just in case you don't know, Texas is where Funimation is based.
Correct. Now Crunchyroll.
No, Crunchyroll. I keep forgetting that. They
Yeah, it's still new.
absorbed or merged or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Companies.
yeah, that's good. You know, I'm glad. It's great that we were all still able to record and work.
Yeah,
'Cause
for
that
sure.
was at first I was a little like, oh no.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do?
I think we were all like that. I remember
Yeah.
texting my agent at the time, and he was like, "I'm getting the same question from everybody else. Please wait."
Yeah,
And
stand by.
everybody stand by. Exactly. Everybody was, but we all came together, I think.
Yeah.
And now we all, I feel like, have a little bit more empathy for each other. We cut each other a bit more slack because we all know we're doing our best right now.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So, something I've always wanted to ask you and that I've always been so curious about, because I grew up in Connecticut, which is like super New England,
Yeah.
very East Coast.
Very
and
Old Bay.
yes, and when I moved out here, it'll be 13 years in January.
Congratulations.
But you grew up here in Southern California.
That I did.
And I just want to know, what was that like?
I didn't grow up exactly in LA, but so I grew up a little bit south in a bay town called San Pedro.
Okay,
And
yeah.
You know where
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is?
no, I've been there. They have a lighthouse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
where the 110 ends. And I was able to see Catalina Island from my house, so that
So-
was really nice.
That is so pretty.
Yeah, I
Oh my
love
gosh.
growing up where I grew up. I'm very grateful to my parents for choosing there. Yeah, it was. I mean, it's hard to compare it to other places because San Pedro is like much more community based. You know, everybody was sort of more chill with each other. I think it was kind of a refuge from the fast pace of LA and the and showbiz in general. But you know, I was always making googly eyes at Los Angeles and Burbank, saying
Yeah.
one day I'm going to move an hour up the road, because that's where everything is. I figured out that I think it's because my dad is an entertainment lawyer and now movie producer. Congrats, bud.
That's good.
He started me off on the. I watched what he did early on, and you know, I have high functioning autism, so I sort of started with the creativity thing pretty early. I thought that everybody thought that I was going to do children's books, and I get it because I used to like staple pieces of 8.5 by 11 printer paper together and just like make comics one after the other, like Kids Next Door fan comics, and like I don't know, just anything I could do, original stuff too. But I think it was about fifth grade when I booked the lead in this play called Freedom Bound. It was about this family coming to America and making their way. That sort of, I think, implanted my love for theater and acting early, and you know, I came up with a lot of my friends who sort of had the same thing and were very supportive of me. There were some that, weren't, but you get that
Yeah.
either side in school.
Yeah.
And just doing a bunch of that and online animation at sort of the start of YouTube.
Oh, wow. Got in there early.
Yeah. I experimented with Flash animation and Brawl Machinima and all that, and ended up finding sort of a tribe on there of creators, and they all wanted me to act for their stuff, and
Cool.
I love doing that.
Yeah.
So it sort of grew. The voice acting love sort of grew from there. I'm sorry if I'm veering too far off of the growing up thing. It's just like it was kind of boring. there wasn't a lot to do except like boogie board and like go down to tide pools and like pick up sea urchins and
that sounds so cool
stuff.
to me, though.
It's fun, but there's more than that.
You had your eyes set on Hollywood.
That I
literally
did. Inward. It's funny. My two career paths I could have taken. I also experimented with the idea of being a sailor. I like the idea of being out on the open ocean.
Wow.
But now I looked landward, inward to land. But yeah, other than that, I sort of I made my own way online because I think I didn't after a certain while I sort of got bored of my surroundings.
Yeah.
Even though I love going back, don't get me wrong. It's just like the heart is it longs for where it isn't, what it can't have, what it wants,
100%.
So yeah, I came up online with a bunch of other voice actors that I'm still friends with today. Kira Buckland, Sean Chiplock, Xander Mobus, all those guys started online, and albeit I was a bit younger and more annoying, but they've since forgiven me for my transgressions.
Oh my God.
I hope.
I feel like you can get away with a lot just if you're like the young guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm getting to the point where I'm not the young guy anymore, and I'm kind of starting to embrace that.
Nice.
I've always, you say old soul, my mom would say curmudgeon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But that's because I grew up with a bunch of Jewish grandpas and grandmas who
oh my gosh.
In that setting, complaining is caring. So you only complain about the things you're passionate about.
I love that.
Yeah, it can set other people off, but I know what they mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to, you said that you have high functioning autism.
Correct.
And you posted something on Twitter now it's like a couple years ago, but yeah, when I read through it, I just found it super inspirational. A lot of people ask me like at conventions if they could be a voice actor because they have autism, and you're just living proof that you absolutely can.
I think.
Yeah, and it hasn't stopped you from like achieving your dreams and what you want. And so I just want to kind of backtrack to that, because on your post you said that you didn't actually find out that you had it until you were 16.
No, yeah.
So like, what was that day like? Like you said, you went out with your dad and he told you this. So like, what?
I remember it well. I don't remember quite what prompted it. I believe at the time I was taking a class to sort of help me understand people better, how to make them comfortable with me. Sort of social skills class.
Okay.
That's a good word for it. And at the time, I wondered why. I knew I needed to take it, but I wondered if I was just stupid or something. If I and my dad, well, my mom and dad had been, not I won't say hiding it, but really just not talking about it because I never really brought it up, honestly. I thought I was just different and that was fine. But yeah, no, I started to wonder more about it as I went through that class, and I asked I didn't ask him directly, but I talked with my dad, and I was like, is something? I just wonder sometimes, is something wrong with me? And we were at this ramen bar that's no longer there on Sawtell in Santa Monica, Japan Row, which has a lot of great food now, to be fair. But I miss this place a lot. And I was at the end of the bar. Actually eating udon
nice.
with him, and yeah, the udon for those who don't know is ramen but thicker noodles.
It's like the big noodles.
Yeah, and
really
different
good.
broth.
Yeah.
But he said, "You're probably old enough to know this and not really let it affect you, or he didn't say use as a crutch, but he kind of implied it. He didn't. He never wanted me to use it as a crutch or as a reason to garner sympathy.
Yeah.
Which I completely got. I never wanted that in the first place. But he said you have autism, and he explained to me what that meant, and that I had gotten it from him, and that they did the test when I was really young, and it came out that way. And they also did an IQ test, which my mom refuses to share the results to me because she's afraid I'll hold it over my sister.
You're like, I should be in Mensa.
I would never do that, but she still doesn't.
What I
believe
say,
me.
he's the sweetest person in VO. There you go.
Thank you.
There you go, folks.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I just remember in that moment being not, my world was shaken a little bit, but I was more relieved than anything. I thought something was just wrong with me, but it was just autism, and there's nothing wrong with you when you have autism.
Yeah.
It's literally, I mean, it's more complex than this, but it's like the wires are just crossed a different way, put in different outlets in the brain, and it brings different voltage to different places.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all. It doesn't make you lesser than anybody. That's why I think that autism is an effective tool in voice acting. It's an advantage because with autism, you don't really understand a lot of social signals and why you should, in the first place, honor social signals and social convention. So I think that puts away a lot of anxiety from certain things, like in performing, when you realize that it doesn't matter. You're just having fun. It's like any other playing pretend, and who cares what they think? You've never cared what they thought before.
Yeah.
You're going to do what you do and love doing it. And I also think it's cool in recognizing certain things about people that they wouldn't normally, that others
Really?
wouldn't, because I can sort of tell if I'm going to vibe with a person within one conversation. That completely. There are certain, tics about the face. There are certain inflections in the voice that people tend not to use, and combining those things in different ways to make a character makes something original that I hope nobody's ever thought of. I don't want to
Yeah.
plagiarize anybody, but I
Yeah.
I don't know. I like mixing and matching the different. I analyze people's how they hold themselves, how they talk, how they are, and I analyze the different attributes and elements that go into that. And I say, okay, if I took this one and this one, combine that here, and experimenting with that was the ultimate thing with voice acting. And screen acting would be interesting, but voice acting was cool because I could take away the face for a second to just sort of combine the different vocal stuff and what the face did to make that stuff sound that way and feel that way.
Interesting.
Anyway, I'm rambling.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I always like to hear about how other people create characters and like their method, because there's so many different ways to act, and there's so many like methods that you could study, and then people will like take from different methods and then make their own. So
Sure.
yeah, no, I think that's really cool.
I took the classes, and I still use techniques from my teachers today, Bob Bergen, Debbie Derryberry, Charlie Adler. But I feel like I sort of remixed them to work with my operating system a little bit. And that's brought in... I don't have some features that the other operating systems have, but I do have some programs that aren't compatible. It's so much easier when I do it with computer terms.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's cool. So another thing that you mentioned in your post was like your school experience and how that was at first. It sounded like early elementary school, like you were vibing with the other kids, and then eventually you kind of became an outcast, and then you went to online school. And then it sounds like you were also cyberbullied, which that I can't believe that, like,
well,
you
I
said
also...
there's stuff like still online about it, which kind of like flabbergasted me. But could you just tell me a little bit about like what that was like? And then, I mean, eventually you overcame it and you're here and everything's great. But I always like to hear how people kind of like worked through their blocks and how they overcame things to like achieve success. So
Right on.
yeah.
Yeah, elementary school, definitely vibing. They liked me because I made worlds that they couldn't see, but they were happy to be along for the ride back then. But then as we got older, the idea of playing pretend wasn't as... it was associated with childishness, and they wanted to leave that behind and become adults as fast as they could. That's human nature. But I still found reality just so boring at that time. I liked my worlds better. And so they didn't understand it. And when, kids or even adults who don't understand something are unwilling to understand something because the vast majority doesn't want to, they will push away the thing that they don't understand because they're scared. So for a while, I was a bit of an outcast. I didn't really find my tribe that much, except online. So I think that's part of it. I escaped to online because I found more of me there, and I was a very different person back then, Cassandra. I did not understand why people were uncomfortable about certain things, and I only really cared about getting extreme emotion out of people. Not extreme, but like emotion that was present enough that I could completely understand, because subtleties eluded me back then. So whether that emotion was joy, I still opted for joy. I wanted joy. I still want
good.
joy.
Yeah.
But if it was anger, I was still I was fascinated. I like all the different things that make people have these emotions. I don't know.
So were you kind of like poking people, or just trying to get like trying to like entertain people, or like trying to piss people off, or
I mean, there was a point where all of those, yes. But I think at the core of it all, to generalize it, I was just trying to figure out why people were the way they were, and if I could translate to that somehow.
okay.
I was trying to carve my own Rosetta Stone, I think. But that did not come off good to most people, and fair enough. I was very annoying. So even online, a couple of times it was warranted, a couple of times it wasn't. But yes, I was bullied there, and at some point I felt like I was sort of receding into myself, because I just felt like everybody hated me and I couldn't stop myself from making people hate me. So I just felt like I might as well just remove myself from the equation. That would make everybody the happiest. Not the, and I'm not even trying to garner sympathy now. That's just what I was feeling.
Yeah.
So online school was I felt like that was where I could do the least damage. That was my mindset at the time.
Okay.
But as time went on, I found that I had sort of buried the experimental stage of my personality, and I would go around like Del Amo Mall and like all the other malls and places around and just watch people. This was advice from my dad on how he on what he even liked to do, but how he sort of found himself. And I would just I found out that I didn't have to be the sole experimenter. I could just watch people in the wild, and that there wouldn't be any harm from me there. I could just watch life unfold. And so I feel like I'm still me, but I started to take pieces, like little bits and pieces from everything I saw, and build sort of a new person, no pun intended, persona around not people pleasing, but making the version of myself that could actually hang out with people again, without getting vilified.
Yeah. And I just want to say, like, that takes a lot of maturity and self-awareness that I feel like a lot of people don't have, even without Asperger's. Like, to recognize that, hey, I'm kind of annoying to people, but I don't want to be. So, like, what can I do? Like that. Like, I commend you for doing that.
Thank you. I just felt like I had to grow up fast or get left behind at that time. But I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
I worked really hard to get back to where I could be a kid again,
And how old were you when
I was doing all this?
Yeah.
14 to 16.
See, again, like old soul. Like that's for somebody that age, I feel like that's a very like mature self-awareness to have. That's really cool.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So after that, I sort of emerged with by that time I had gotten very lonely. I missed humans. I missed being in the wild with my own kind.
Yeah, because online can only take you so far.
Exactly. I'd gotten depressed, fat. I'd stopped wanting to do anything because I wasn't, I didn't need to do it for anybody. So what was the point? But I wanted to care again.
Yeah.
So I felt like I didn't really have much without that. So I enrolled in a different high school this time. And I did start at an in-person high school for like 3 months, and I realized before I realized it wasn't for me, and I went to online. But that school was very mean. This time I enrolled at a school that was much more arts focused, much more
cool.
intelligence and expression focused. Peninsula Palos Verdes. Go Panthers. And I enrolled in the drama club immediately because
Nice.
That's where
Your people.
That's where they were. All us outcasts and weirdos. Actually, some of the most popular and outgoing and just kind people in school just all ended up there. But that was definitely the anchor of my high school days and finding myself again. And people, to their credit, were fascinated with me and my journey and all that. And I felt like they wanted to sort of make it easier on me and take me in, and I appreciated that, but I didn't take any handouts or anything. I wanted to prove myself to friend groups and stuff, and some of the people that I was friends with there, I'm still friends with today. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, the good old boys and girls.
But I feel like that's like I've been told that that's a sign of like having really good character, is if like you have really old friends, because like you've been able to maintain the relationship for so long.
Well, that's the thing. We barely ever talk, but every time we come back, we just slide into the same.
No, that counts 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you guys are busy with your own careers and stuff like that.
For sure. My friend Robert will just, every now and again, we'll just message each other and get into the same roasting we used to do. They made me love roasting. I think the best thing they ever did for me was teach me how to not care so much about what people thought of me and to embrace insults, because that means that people are paying attention, at least, and that in itself is a compliment. And then you can jab back, and there's camaraderie over a good fist fight. Not an actual one, but
oh my gosh,
metaphors.
that's funny. Yeah, I have a friend who, she lives in San Diego now, but I've known her since 4th grade. And like I saw her for the first time a couple of years ago, but I hadn't seen her in like 12 years. And it was like we had never spent any time apart. So yeah.
That's the good ones.
Yeah, shout out Jillian. I love those relationships. That's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Cassandra here. Kellen and I had so much to talk about that I split his interview into 2. So stay tuned for the next episode, where we chat more about how changing his outlook changed his life for the better, how parents in his school district were less than welcoming and how he overcame that, and how he sees that whole situation today, and how his relationship with his parents contributed to his success. And now, a small ask on my part. If you found value in this episode, if you were entertained or inspired, or if you learned something, please consider making a donation via the link in the show notes. This podcast is 100% out of pocket, and every little bit helps. It would help me pay for more studio rentals, for editing, for the distribution platform, etc. Really, any amount helps. I would love to make more episodes like this one, and your donation would help me do so. Also, please follow, like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review with your feedback. It really, really helps out me and the pod, especially since we're new around here and we're just getting started. Thank you so much for being here and for your support. Video and audio editing by Crisp. Music by Steve Chevy. For collaborations or ad requests, email booking.cassandraleemorris@gmail.com.